Travis Wayne Goodsill. This is intended to be a quick comment review. I need to address both Mormon and coronavirus. With coronavirus, since the Mormon one's up on the screen for me to remember, with the coronavirus, they're now reporting in the news that everyone is getting it. 20s on up to elderly. I'm not hearing kids yet, but that's all they're saying is just age. When the news just focuses on the age, they're presenting a bias with intent to influence the populace, their viewers. In this particular case, as it's a crisis, what they're doing is very dangerous and wrong, because we don't know the other factors for these other age groups who got coronavirus. We need to find out, for example, do they have weak immune systems, like pre-existing conditions? Are they, I guess pre-existing conditions covers it, but such as obesity, diabetes, other health factors. Because I remember not too long ago that news was covering the obesity epidemic in America, as the rising generation of kids are just fat. And America is fat. And wasn't that the Super Size Me movie, wasn't that all about how fast food is making people fat and get diabetes and everything? And so, are those also involved with the age categories? Because if it is, then there's nothing to worry for those of us who are under 60, because it only goes after those with weak immune systems. What we need to know in order to be properly informed by the news. And if the news is just jumping the gun saying, oh, there's 20-year-olds, oh my God, we're all doomed. Because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to cause a panic. And fascism loves to do that kind of stunt. Panic the people. Cause fear so that people will be obedient and socially responsible. And so we need more information. Just because the news is telling us something does not mean that that's the full truth. Now, you can be a Trump loyalist and say, well, yeah, no duh, CNN, for example, of course they're saying that because they're the fake news media. But why are they the fake news media? When you understand why they're the fake news media, then you can go and apply it to other news media of which you're watching, like Fox. And you'll realize, they're doing the same thing. It's just they're taking a different bias. And so don't get caught up in that scam, that brainwashing scam. We don't want to cause a riot and panic, but at the same time, we need our government to step up and do their job and properly inform the public. And what they're doing is setting a course for us to not ever be informed at all, as we will have to give up our internet service in order to feed ourselves and survive. And when that day comes, that's going to get ugly, because who are we going to trust? A fascist government that comes in and orders us to do things when we don't understand what kind of a crisis it is that they're complaining about? No, we can't have that. So please, news medias, don't do this to the people. Okay, let me. So LDS Mormon socially irresponsible is finished. So now I get to the Mormon comment topic. I've seen this kind of comment on numerous occasions throughout my YouTube time, the past 5 years, and it's where people try to do the cancel culture. That's what they're calling it now. And again, it's turning into a fad, and people think that they're, knowledgeable on the subject to put people in their place on this issue. And no, I'm going to shut you down right here, right now. It is not. Cancel culture is not good. It's fascist. It comes from communist Democrats, which is the fun part. You get to call them fascists now. Just like MSNBC and CNN and all the other left-wing medias about coronavirus. We need to lock people up. Lock them up. That's fascism? Are you sure that's what you want? Don't you want something more like what Bernie might be wanting us to do? But whatever. But in Mormonism, I'm out of the closet as an LDS critic. And I've done the video where I explain the definition of criticism. It's not complaining or making false accusations and just lies. No, criticism is where you use a standard measurement to identify errors that can be corrected. Now, that may be confusing to people who've never heard of that definition before, especially in Mormonism. But this is where I'm going to step in and correct Alicia Yamamoto. She makes the comment, which, like I said, is common for many people that have commented on my YouTube videos over the 5 years. She says, try to be a blessing to other people. Use your time wisely. Now, she's making a judgment against me. Shame on you, Alicia. Remember your New Testament? Do not judge rashly. Beam in the moat. Most people jump to the one sentence of, judge not lest you be judged yourself. Oh, okay, I can get away with whatever I want now, because nobody can judge me, and I will continue to judge them anyway. And so that's the first thing she's doing, is she's making a judgment on me, is that she's trying to cancel my being an LDS critic. Identifying the standards, or using standard measurements to identify the errors in Mormonism. And now, what kind of standard measurements would I use to be an LDS critic, you might ask? Well, one, if I'm talking about the criminal actions of the church, then my standard is the Constitution. Life, liberty, property. You violate those of the people, you're committing a crime. That's simple, not complicated. If it's doctrinal, the Book of Mormon, that's my standard, because that's the Mormon scripture. Mormons used to consider it the official doctrine of the Mormon church, by which everything is to be judged. It even says in the Book of Mormon that the Book of Mormon is to judge the world. And so that's how I proceed with being an LDS critic. And so for her to try to cancel me by saying be a blessing to other people. That's what I'm doing, Alicia. Being a critic is a blessing. When a teacher takes your test and scores you and identifies the errors you made on your test, that's a blessing to you because you can see where you went wrong. Now, if the teacher doesn't care about educating you, it's a bubble test or memorization test, then there can be some problems, and it's not quite a blessing to just be told what you did wrong, because bubble test, you get that back, you got so many out of so many, and you don't know which ones you missed, and you don't know what to correct. But if it's a report and they hand you back the report, you can see the editing that they make on the report and why they graded you the way they graded you. Because it's not based on their opinions or feelings about you as a person, it's about what you presented them. They use the standard of English grammar and comprehension and spelling to make their judgment. And so the teacher in that sense is a blessing when they correct you, identifying your errors and correcting you. And that's what I'm doing as an LDS critic. I'm not your typical LDS critic, and I have to put quotes in that, who just say, oh, well, the church confesses that Joseph Smith had a rock in his hat, and that's how he translated the Book of Mormon, and they're calling it the gift and power of God. I mean, yes, you can be sarcastically satirical, and there are a number of LDS critics who are hilarious to watch, but it's not helping to be a blessing on Mormons. It's just shaming Mormons. And so when I criticize Mormons, and I'll even laugh because of the stupidity of Mormons, and it's because they should know better if they had been following their own religion. And that's why is I use the standards that Mormons were supposed to be using. And so, yeah, use my time wisely. I am. You're being a hypocrite. She's trying to be critical now. See what she's doing? She's saying, try to be a blessing to other people, use your time wisely. She's being a critic to me. And she's not being a blessing to me. Because she's doing a generalization, so I don't know specifically what she's referring to. And so she instead is not using her time wisely in making this comment. See how it works? When people make false accusations, it reveals the same fault in themselves. It's amazing how that works. And so let's see. This other person who only gets subscribers, I'm gonna spam this person, but they're replying to the Armageddon comments and saying, I don't mean to brag, but so you do mean to brag. And that's an error in our English grammar usage, or English sentence structure usage, comprehension usage. And they're claiming that they've lived through the world about 12 times now. Okay. But because of the nature of the title of their name, I'm going to spam them. And having checked, the Boo Girl, though, was kind of cute. And so's she, but, well, whatever. Spam. I had to close my windows because of the rain blowing into the windows. Getting things wet. And then, let's see, I'm going to ban you rather than delete your comment, because she's not capable of being a blessing to me in her criticism. See, I had one person, for example, who instead of trashing me like one other guy did about Cooper Shop rather than Copper Shop, he asked me, is the picture incorrect with the spelling, or are you mistaken and you meant Cooper or whatever? And so by asking a question, it got me going, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I see oh wow, I did miss that, didn't I? And so then I went and did the research on Cooper shops, and found out more earth-shattering revelation on the real LDS history. And so I did that video playlist series as a result. And so that's the difference between being constructive and just being mean and bullying. And Mormons need to understand the difference, because they're not. They're taking everything as bullying, as they themselves are bullies. So, yeah, this other person, I'm not quite sure if he's joking with me or he's just being a smart aleck. I have to pay attention here, because he says, did the Trump sound before the earthquake? I slept through it. And so it could be funny and hilarious, but at the same time he could be making fun of me, in which case I should ban him. I know there is a second one on years to come that will blow the aquifer. I'm wondering if that has to do with the news reports, local news reports, that Mormons were expecting the big one after the Magna one, and was causing a panic, and the news had to be socially responsible and inform the public that those are lies, deceiving the public. I mean, if there's no other earthquake, there's no other earthquake. There's nothing we can do. We don't know where it's going to strike. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know when it's going to be. So, you know, predicting earth signs is a little more complex. The stellar signs, easy. Anybody can figure those. But hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, those are more complicated in figuring out. I did have a working theory when I took a weather and climate class at Rick's College. I started to recognize the patterns of the earth, and was identifying with the hurricane seasons how we could actually use the data of the whole earth and how it changes things as it goes around, to then make predictions longer than the weekly forecast that our local news stations do, or national news for the national forecast. And even on, I haven't checked that site for the cyclone bombs for the winter, but I keep forgetting, not remembering the site name now. It's been so long since I've used it, since last fall. It's going to bug me now. Hope I can still find it, but yeah, it shows all the previous years for each day, but it only goes up to 2 weeks, I think, rather than 1 week. But it stops beyond that because it's the whole world, and yet it's a computer program, but it's not an AI computer program, so it's not able to generate a model to recognize patterns. But it's more accurate than anything I've heard from the news, that's for sure. Man, that's gonna bug me now. I've got to search for it now. Weather forecast science. Not AccuWeather. VentuSky. Yeah. There it is. VentuSky.com. VentuSky.com. And it's very accurate. I trust that more than I trust the news reports because it's predicted hurricanes before the news caught on to them, as the news even would get the wrong directions, whereas VentuSky was right on target. So I trust them more than I trust the news now. So, alrighty, that's the two topics that I wanted to get out in the open, and Sergio Median, he liked my video. The Joseph Smith prophesied Magna Utah earthquake. And there are Mormons who don't like Joseph Smith's prophecies. So that's a shocker. But yeah, quite a shocker, Mormons. Joseph Smith is your founder, and you just spit on his grave. Can't be of two minds. Either Joseph Smith was the founder and you need to listen to him, or you dismiss him with the living prophet. Take your pick, because you can't have both, because they contradict each other. Alrighty, so socially irresponsible, that's the one. Alrighty, so I'll go back to my news.